neighbor across the street is doing some yard work right now. So if any of that sound gets picked up and it's distracting, I apologize. So we've completed week 8 of online learning, and this week, as I mentioned in my last video, wasn't so bad because for me, I only had to post an assignment on Wednesday because normally I would have posted on Monday as well, but it was Memorial Day, so we had off, and I communicated to my students, you guys are off that day, so as long as you have your work done, you know, you don't have to do anything. And some kids were still turning stuff in that day because it was late, which is fine. It's on them. I like that students have that autonomy and they're learning like the very natural consequence of if I don't do my work when it's assigned, I have to make it up later. And maybe some of them prefer it that way and they'd rather do it a little bit later. It's totally fine with me. I don't really care that much. And these were the assignments that I had not graded yet. So when I assign work on Wednesday, I give them 2 days to do it. So it's due on Friday, and I don't give them a time limit. It's like anytime on Friday they can turn it in. And with the next day being Saturday, I'm not going in to grade it, so I don't grade it until Monday. So if they do it and it's late, but they did it Saturday or Sunday, that's fine because it's all right there because I didn't grade it yet. It is a little tedious to go back and grade things from the past that have already been graded, and what I communicated with my students in this week's update was you need to make sure that you turn those things in because these things are like on Google Forms. So if they don't turn it in through Google Classroom, I have no way of knowing that they completed the form. So that's something I have to keep continually reminding students about, and hopefully I don't miss anything, but if I do, it's not on me because I did what I was supposed to do. And I hate putting it that way because I don't want to make it I don't want my students to ever feel like they did something wrong because they couldn't access the computer or the internet to get the stuff done when it was supposed to, but they need to follow up and turn it in. That was like a stream of consciousness. I don't even know, that was not even like where I tended to go with that train of thought, but that's where we ended up. So I'm gonna stick with that. In geometry, my students had their very last lesson of new content. It was on arc length and area of sectors. So next week, they're getting practice on that and then like a general circles review. And everything for next week I actually had planned out before Memorial Day break. So this week my task was just to schedule those assignments. In general geometry, they are doing review on the Pythagorean theorem, and I purchased a set of task cards on Teachers Pay Teachers, and they are for 8th grade, and I'm dealing with students that are primarily in 10th grade. But I found everything to be very relevant, and the rigor is definitely 8th grade level, and I'll link them below. I think that they're fabulous. The thing is that I feel doing online learning, and especially just the way it is right now, we are not just distance teaching, we are crisis teaching. It's just not the norm, so I feel that I don't want to stress my students out either by giving them work that is up to our usual rigor. It depends on the topic and everything, so certain things I've definitely made it a little bit easier than normal, and other things I kind of kept about the same. It just really depended on the topic. My only concern is for other teachers actually, because everything that I've made and given to my students for assignments, I have taken and made it for Teachers Pay Teachers as well. So I'm just concerned in the future that the rigor might not be enough for those teachers. But I don't really know, and it's not something I can really worry about because I definitely feel that getting through this means that we are relaxing certain things. I don't need to make questions about Pythagorean theorem super difficult or tricky. I just want them to practice it because they will most likely encounter it again in the future. So the only like real work that I had to prepare for my students for next week was actually for calculus. For Wednesday, they had part 1 of their final review, and now next week, Monday and Wednesday, they'll have parts 2 and 3. And so I give them practice questions from past final exams, and I've just broken them down so that they're in sections, and I took 2 final exams, and the questions are so similar every time that I just blocked similar questions together and just broke them down so that they're evenly distributed, and they're going to mirror the final. The only difference is that the final will be shorter than the review sheets that they've been getting. So it's up to them to do the review sheet. They have nothing to turn in. I give them the answer key, and then I also made up like a cheat sheet for them on the topics that are within that part of review. So I had to make the review sheets, like type them up. Actually, they may have been typed up last week if I remember correctly, but I had to do the answer keys, which if you saw my Instagram stories, I think it was Tuesday, I was so frustrated because I for sure spent like half an hour on one problem because I just kept making little tiny ridiculous mistakes. And then I had to make up their cheat sheet as well, which by this point it was a lot of like copy and paste from stuff that we did in class, like worksheets that I made up for them. Anyway, having less to do and only having to focus on calculus was the hugest blessing ever, because I, for one, was working on reformatting parts of our code of conduct because I'm on the discipline committee and we were spending time trying to fix the code of conduct because it was just outdated, very outdated stuff in there that were like, that's not a problem anymore, and it hasn't been for a decade. A lot of little things, and just cleaning it up and making it make sense, because there are certain things that just didn't really make sense. So having less stuff that I had to like prepare and put together gave me time to work on that. And also I just did not feel the greatest throughout the week. It really depended on the day. Today I'm feeling really good, if you can't tell by how fast I'm talking. But during certain points of the week, like yesterday in particular, I felt so nauseous that I couldn't really do much. However, that did not stop me from scheduling out everything for next week. So next week is good to go, and going forward for next week, all I have to do is plan out what I'm doing in my geometry classes and put those together and schedule it. I actually want to get a plan down on paper today. I hear rumbling and I don't know if it's like thunder because we're supposed to get a storm, but it's really bright and sunny right now, so I'm confused. Anyway, the big news is we finally have an end date, and actually we have like several end dates, which is just kind of how it goes, especially this year. So officially our last day of online learning is Friday, June 12th, which other schools were slowly starting to announce around us anyway, so it's kind of what we were figuring. So now, since I'm posting on a Monday, Wednesday schedule, the last day that I'm putting content out will be Wednesday, June 10th. So where that puts me is calculus is done, and I just have to worry about my 2 geometry classes getting content up for them for that last week. So it's their last 2 assignments. The following week is June 15th through the 19th, and that is like a week of like a grace period for students, for them to complete any work that's missing and to turn stuff in. So June 19th, students are cut off. They cannot turn anything else in. And what's really frustrating to me is the way that Google Classroom is set up. Like, it will allow them to just keep turning in work, but I won't be able to take it and grade it after the 19th. And I really do need the extra time, because the way that we have our grades set up for this quarter, not for the quarter, but for the year, their cumulative average for the course is either their average from the first 3 quarters or their average of all 4 quarters. It's whichever one is the highest. So I need time to actually like sift through and override grades, and it's going to be a process, but I don't think it's going to be difficult. I think it's just going to be a little bit of work, and something that I definitely want to just take the time to sit down and pay attention to. And then our official last day of school, which this is how it was planned in the calendar, is June 26th. So in that time between June 19th and the 26th, in addition to getting our grades done, we've been asked to help guidance department with notifying students about summer school. Summer school in New York State is happening virtually online. We don't know about September, which I'm sure no one does yet, and that's fine. I feel like I'm gonna butcher this whole thing again because I just explained it and you didn't get to see any of that. But New York State started reopening in phases, and it's only in certain regions. So a region of the state would have to meet these 7 requirements, and our region did recently. So we are in phase 1 of reopening, which is nothing exciting. In phase 1, like, construction can resume. It doesn't change anything for me or my family. And the idea is that after approximately 2 weeks, I'm thinking it's going to take more than 2 weeks to really see the results on whether or not this thing is okay, or if it's going to start increasing again. If it starts increasing again, they will not move on to the next phase. And if things are okay, they can move on to phase 2, which is when we could get haircuts again. After that is phase 3, which is like we can go back to the mall. And then phase 4 is we could go back to school. So theoretically, if it only takes like 2 weeks between phases and things are fine, we could be back in school in September. I'm not holding my breath on it though. I really don't know what's going to happen. And in speaking of not knowing what's going to happen next year, last week I was talking about how it was weighing on me that I did not know what my teaching assignments were going to look like. I had an idea before, but the news that we got was that our retiring department chair would not be replaced for next year. She's irreplaceable, but they're not going to fill her position. So all the classes that she took now needs to be parsed out amongst the remaining math department people, and it's highly likely that certain courses like SAT prep, for example, will be cut. So the news about my teaching assignment for next year is I'm going to find out Sunday night or Monday morning. So fingers crossed it's sooner rather than later, because I'm honestly just dying to know, but I still have some time to wait. So that will be shared in our next update. And that's everything for week 8. Every time I sit down and make these videos lately, I'm like, I only have 2 or 3 new things that happened. This is going to be done in like 5 minutes. It's going to be a really short video. And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, how did this video take so long? And then that's just 20 minutes of filming. After it's edited, it will be a lot less because I'll take out some of those crazy tangents I had. Anyway, that's everything for this video. And as always, thanks for watching.